what can we expect from your character in season 2?
Season 2? Okay, season 1, Robert is like this beta guy who sort of like stays under the surface and is like happy sort of like letting other people do their thing, whatever. But there's a big bombshell that happens, you know, at the end of season 1, and that's just the line that should not be crossed with a beta male. And season 2 is all about what happens when you cross the beta male.
Oh man, there's just more evil. There's less remorse. It's bigger. It's such a big show, and this season, season 2, is just, they really double down. Hulu and Marvel just believe in our show, and it's bigger, it's badder, it's just, the special effects are greater, the storyline is beautiful. We have 3 more episodes, and we come out on the 21st of December, so it's really, really good. I can't tell you anything. They're like snipers in the sky.
Season 2, I think we find Jeffrey at a place where he's really, really conflicted. I mean, he knows that he has to get his son back. He knows he wants to get rid of the pride, but he's really conflicted as to how he should go about it. So he's got to get his wife on board with his plan. He's got to keep it secret from the rest of the pride. So it's a really a tight spot for him to be in, but it's really fun to play.
Right out the gate, they sort of grow towards each other. They kind of connect like magnets, and then as time goes on, Darius they become closer, and so you kind of get to see that relationship play out, and what that means. You know, that has ripple effects throughout my family and then Darius's family, and it's a fun arc to kind of play.
Since the moment I got this role and the moment I read the comics and kind of really dived deep into Molly's kind of persona and character, I knew that she was a lot more than like me than I thought. So from the moment, I always wanted to put in just a little bit of myself in it. She's very determined, she's very gracious, she's adventurous, she's a goal-getter, she's stubborn, she's just like me, and I loved playing with that. One thing that I didn't have that she's experienced is that she goes through a lot of loss throughout the season. She has a superhuman element, but the thing that made it all relatable is that we all grow up with the universal truth of growing up and not being believed in because you're a kid. And so she fights with that to prove people that kids know what's up and we can take on the world.
She is like the therapy dog of Gert's life, but then also I think she evolves in season 2 into kind of more of a friend and companion, because Gert kind of gets, I mean not Gert, also Gert, but Old Lace kind of gets her own plot line this year. She definitely...
Okay, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, she kind of like solidifies her place as the 7th runaway. So now she's kind of more on equal footing with everyone else, and she gets to be the hero of moments. She also gets to be rescued in some moments. So I think she's kind of become more part of the group dynamic in a way this season.
How relatable do you find Gert as a character?
Almost too relatable. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I do that, don't I? Yes, even when Gert's doing something a little wrong, I'm like, oh, whoops.
You had to do a lot of modernizing to get this 2003 comic book into this decade. You changed the Gamorum giants into this church. What motivated that decision?
Well, I will say preemptively that a giant stone monster may be making an appearance this season, so do not write that off. But we thought the church was a fun way to incorporate this idea of a kind of alien being that was with us here, and kind of drive some of the Gaborum mythology through a contemporary institution.
It was just, imagine a religion which is based on a sci-fi novel and how that could possibly work in the real world, I think was the beginning of where it all began. Perhaps that. But again, to give credit where credit's due, Brian K. Vaughan, when he created them 15 years ago, was in many ways ahead of his time. You know, having a cast that was just so diverse, really strong female empowered characters, like things that we're thinking about now and caring about now, and probably should have been thinking about a lot harder 15 years ago. It is something that we can now easily adapt. I mean, that was one of the things that I thought was sort of fun, was that so much of what Brian did worked today.
If you had to describe your character in one word, what would you use?
Oh, father.
Fierce. Loyal, really, but fierce. Hey.
Just mood.
Protective.
Did you look to the comics for any inspiration on your character?
Oh
Yes, absolutely. I read all of them and loved it. I mean, even from the ponytail. I auditioned and I had my natural curly hair. I don't have it right now, but I have naturally curly hair, and they loved it. They were like, "Oh yeah, you look beautiful. We'll hire you as is." And I was like, "No, but the comics, she has this long, great ponytail, and it's in every frame, and it's always so beautiful." So even down to something as simple as that, let alone just how she was drawn, how she spoke. Yes, absolutely.
How often do you look to the comics for inspiration on Molly?
All the time, especially the fan art that you guys sent and the memes of like all of Molly's sayings, like especially what she says, like her catchphrases are so iconic, and they're so much fun to kind of incorporate her tone and her witty character that she has.
I did coming into it, but I think, you know, as I think you've seen in season 1, the series is taking on a whole new life of its own as the Runaways, the TV series, versus the comics, while staying true to the spirit of the comics. And frankly, I think in the comics, you didn't really quite, you know, a lot of the Pride members were not explored fully in terms of the depth of the characters, which I think the TV series does much more. So I would argue that maybe this is like something that actually, you know, fills in the gaps.
Maybe it was happening off screen.
You know, yeah, exactly. That it may not be necessarily incompatible, you know?
You had to go through a lot of development and changes throughout season 1, and your character grew so much. Can we see that happening in season 2 as well?
For sure, her arc goes into more to not only her heritage, but her abilities, especially her superhuman strength kind of takes on this huge role of her wanting to be this superhero, wanting to take on the role, wanting to impact the world in some sort of way, since she's gone through so much loss and so much negative. I think that, look, she's a natural-born superhero, I like to say, because she really wants to make the world a better place, and it's so much fun to kind of take that into know and play with the character and kind of develop her throughout the season, especially since she's growing up. She's a teenager now, guys. Like, it's a revelation.
Do you find the character very relatable?
I do. I'm father of a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I totally get it. I get this struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think at the heart of it all, Jeffrey's very protective. He loves his family. He genuinely loves his community. He does some really wild stuff from time to time, but at the heart of it, he's someone who really cares about the people that are close to him. And yeah, I can relate to that.
Trying to find yourself, trying to understand who you are and where you belong necessarily. I think that's all the things that a lot of people can relate to. Especially as a teenager, and even still now, I'm trying to figure out my life and who I am and what I like and what I don't like, and they have to do the same thing, but under the circumstances of them, you know, trying to survive, trying not to get thrown in jail for the kidnapping and murder of Destiny, or, you know, that's the season 2 kind of starting the plot line, or finding out that their parents are murderers. Those kind of things are what makes this show kind of so fun, because the stakes are risen so high, and so that's kind of how I relate to them, in just the general sense of understanding who you are as a person.
What was the most difficult scene to film in season 1 as an actor?
The hardest scene was probably like the seance scene on the beach. I think that was like my second day of shooting out of the whole season, and I was alone out there, and we were kind of short for time since we were fighting with the sun. They wanted it to be exactly when you could see the sun setting. I think it was also because they got me. They were like, "All right, get to start building a fire," and I was like, "How do you build a fire?" Like, "All right, do what you need to do the seance," and I was like, "No rehearsal." So it was pretty just kind of what I thought of doing at the moment. Yeah, I remember I was just really nervous for that scene.
There's 2, I guess, in the pilot. Kind of when I was still trying to figure out Alex. I mean, I had a character that I understood, but with everything going on, that was, you know, my first time in being a series regular, and so yeah, that was kind of tough for me to just jump in and be Alex, you know, 24/7, or on set 24/7. But and then the other one was the Amy scene in episode 8, I believe, when he sort of comes out and tells her the truth that he's been harboring all this news the whole time. That's kind of why the first episode was so hard, because he kind of alludes to it. You see that he's almost going to say it in a couple different scenes. He feels like telling her what it is, and he has to hold that back. And so kind of knowing that knowledge was nice at the beginning, and getting to play that out through the whole season was also very fun.
What about the easiest scene?
I mean, just any group scenes with like the other Runaways was always easy, because it's just everything's easier with them. It's a good time, or you know, chemistry's flowing or whatever, and yeah, I think all the group scenes were really pretty easy. A good time for me.
How do you sort of work through being both this disloyal husband and also being a good father at the same time?
Sure. Well, I think it's not as distant of an idea as you might think. I think the break in the marriage, right, is something that's like almost irreparable. And yet there's something that needs to be met for me to stay human, right? And that's where the affair comes in. But that affair doesn't necessarily mean that like I don't care about my family anymore, right? And I continue to care. And in fact, that's the number one thing that I care about. So as we saw at the end of season 1, Tina and I are we're going to try to mend our marriage. And I think season 2, you get to see, okay, how are these two going to try to become a unit again,